but it talks about the stakeholders, and it says it may include, and it lists a number of people, representatives from the town of Chapel Hill, university, neighbor, homeowners association. The fact that everybody's not represented by homeowners association, I think, needs to be addressed, and that homeownership representatives and the homeowner association is not a critical element of that. But I would say it will include, rather than it may include. I think all those representatives that are listed with the modification of the homeowners association piece are all important people to be part of that, are important stakeholders, and I would say, thank you, will be included. And then number,
how about representatives of nearby homeowners?
I am really, one of the things that I'm really not sure about with the Good Neighbor plan as it's set out here is, and this is just in response to the contentiousness of this current situation, is the language does not provide a lot of direction or firmness and making sure that many different voices get to the table. And I know that some of the neighbors were saying that they don't want to be at the table. They don't even have that option. But I think that in the end, the way to make this work for an entire community is to make sure that the option of being at the table is there. And I am not saying that this would happen, but I'm also, of the I don't control anything except what I control. And I know that it would be, if I were the IFC and I had to choose between, as someone said, doing the painful thing or the less painful thing, I know I would have the tendency to want to do the less painful thing. And what I'm saying is that I would want something in here that makes sure that there is some requirement that even those painful voices are invited to the table so that they can be heard and responded to. And I don't see anything here that has, there's a, the language is very, very loose, but I also don't want to get, I also don't want another town standing committee. So I'm trying to figure out what's the space between us creating something and saying, you're on and you seem to represent, and also it being this very, it can be composed of this, and that, and the other, but we really don't have any requirements of what it is composed of. That makes me very nervous, because the thing that makes me so comfortable about where I currently stand about this application is the Good Neighbor plan and what it can do and the measurements that it will provide and the assessments and the feedback. So, but I think for me to be comfortable with it, I need to know that the appropriate voices are included in the process. I think there is language here that says, I'm a true believer in just because you build it, they will not come. So just because I send out a flyer saying, hey, we're having a meeting on Sunday, doesn't mean that people feel welcome and invited. So I guess I am asking that there be some some demonstration that a true goodwill push has, and I don't know what that is, and that's what I'm saying. That this is, I'm trying not to fall into the too much structure as opposed to too little structure. There's a space here. It says that after the Good Neighbor plan is created, that the stakeholders can be asked to serve on the Community House Advisory Committee. But it's still not clear where the stakeholders are coming from to begin with and how they're being invited. So we got really lucky in that we had some very, very motivated folks who were interested in our civilian police concerns here in town. And so when the police started having their open forums, folks showed up because they'd been waiting for this for a long time. What I'm afraid of is right now that there is a lot of distrust and tension and frustration. And depending on the timeline of this Good Neighbor program, that there could be some folks who just, might need a little extra honey to get to the table. And what I'm asking for and what I'm hoping for is some way for us to figure out a way to make that clearly known, that extra effort to get folks to the table and have those voices heard, because it's not going to happen here. It's not going to be at this meeting. It's from what I'm understanding. This is not happening in front of us. And so we are trusting that we're sending the process out into the world. It's going to happen. And then it's going to come back to us. And all I'm saying is that I want to make sure that, just like in this space, there's a sense of openness that there is there also.
Pizza.
Matt?
I was just, wondering about, I keep going back to the lease. It seems like things are going to the lease in some ways. And so, I'm just wondering, in a perfect world, everything works out, right, in a perfect world. But what happens if, for whatever reason, things just don't work out, even after an agreement upon the Good Neighbor plan, that things are not going well around the facility? Okay, say there is an increase in crime, say that people are being harassed in the park. I mean, I've been told that that's not going to happen, but what if it happens? So what happens in the lease? Is there, how does it work when things break down and the renewal of the lease comes up? Does the town say, we're not going to renew your lease? And then what happens to the building and things like that?
I think the lease is contemplated to be a long-term lease, so I don't think it's a matter of renewal. I think it would be a matter of writing into the lease provisions that stipulate what constitutes a breach of the lease and then what remedies are available to the town in light of that breach. But there's not I don't think the intent is that the lease is going to be like a year-to-year or a 5-year lease. I mean, I think it's intended to be a long-term lease, just as the lease from the university to the town is intended to be a long-term lease. But again, these haven't been drafted. They haven't been provided to the town, negotiated or approved by anybody. So it's really they haven't been drawn up yet.
Well, without respect to the timing of how long the lease is, what could be an example of some of the things, not getting specific, but what happens if they break certain provisions of the lease?
That'd be a matter of what we write into the lease. We'd write into the lease what the consequences are.
And the consequences could range from some kind of requiring certain corrective measures to be taken, all the way to vacating the property.
Right. I mean, it'd be a matter of whatever we can.
Notwithstanding that the lease hadn't expired.
Right. And I mean, if we craft terms and offer a lease that's not acceptable, then a lease is not entered into, and there is no lease. But the lease has to be an agreement between the two parties, the lessor and the lessee, and if they don't agree, then there is no lease.